And I got a job there, and I worked there a month
At Conver?
at Convair. And I learned how to braze, and I made a little hammer. This guy was going to show me how to braze, and I said, well, let's make something. So I just got a little piece of square tubing, and I brazed bronze on the faces and made a little handle, and then I welded 2 stainless steel welding rods to the handle and made a little ball on the end so you wouldn't stab yourself with it. And I took it to the shop when I opened the shop, and one day I went out to dump the trash, and there was my little hammer broke in the trash. Well, I found out who the hell did that and made him weld it back together, and then I brought the son of a bitch home, and it's out in the garage now. Yeah. Still a good little hammer.
So you worked
anyway,
at
I worked at
Conver. Is
Conver.
that up off of Pacific Highway?
Yeah, it's that big building there. Yeah.
Right.
So, well, actually, the building I worked in's gone, but the northern part of it was the same building, and it's still there. So I went to the motorcycle shop, and I worked there for 3.5 years.
What place was that?
Richard's Motors.
Okay.
The sign at the shop is the same sign that was at Richard's Motors. Years later, I bought it from the guys that bought Richard's Motors when they quit and used that sign. That's where I was working when I sold my Vincent first to the rich guy in L.A. that bought it.
Well, you had your Harley when you came to San Diego. Then you started working at Convair. Did you buy a Vincent when you got to San Diego?
No, I bought a Triumph.
Okay.
That Harley, I wanted rid of that thing, and I rode that back carefully from Toronto, Canada. I told you about that. I went to Iowa on it, and a guy owed me $20, but he didn't pay me $20, but let me sleep on his couch. And that was my longest day's ride, was from Des Moines, Iowa to Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was over 500 miles, 570 miles, something like that, in one day. And yeah, then I rode on back to California and gave it a good washing and a good paint and a good selling. And I bought a new Triumph when I went to work for Richard's Motors. I could not afford the Vincent, and it came in after about a year, and I still couldn't afford it even used. And we sold it to a kid on Saturday, and on Sunday he took it for a ride, and he broke a little gear in the timing case. It was a breather gear. It was cast iron, and it should have been steel. And so they made a replacement. It was bronze and a steel gear, and it's still in the motorcycle. Still works fine. So anyway, the kid took it and broke it the first day's ride, and brought it back and traded it in. Well, they took it apart in the back and they said, we can't fix it, we've got no parts. Here's a square 4, take that, it runs good. So he took that and was happy. And that Vincent laid back in the shop for about 4 or 5 months. And I finally went to my boss and I said, hey, I got a 1-year-old Triumph, and if I paint that up and shine all the chrome and make it lovely, how about trading it for that broken Vincent? He said, fine, I'll give you $300 or $400. And I did that. And at that time I didn't know enough about the Vincent to work on it. So I had a friend in LA that raced Vincents, and he worked at a Vincent store, and he took the engine, or I took it up to him, and he fixed the engine and brought it back, and then I put the motorcycle together and rode it for 2 or 3 years, back and forth to work, and me and my buddy rode up to the dry lakes and ran it up there. going up to the dry lakes, when we'd go uphill, my buddy would pull me about a half a bike length or a wheel length. And when we go over the other side, I'd pull him about a wheel length. So my tire was bigger than his. I had a 4-inch back tire on, and he had a worn 350. So we got to the dry lakes, and I ran 103.6 or something. And I said, hell, I think I was going faster in third. So the next time I ran through in third, and I ran 106.19 in third. So I gave up on that, and we rode the motorcycles home. My buddy's bike slowed down. It would only do 103 miles an hour. Before, it had been the same as mine.
Mm-hmm.
So we rode back to San Diego, and what happened, he'd had a guy put a slip ring in a magneto, but he put one in for a Triumph. It was a 180-degree firing order, and the firing order was 50 degrees on the Vincent. So that didn't work too good. Put the right thing in there, and it run fine. And
so the Vincent that you're talking about right now, the one that you got from Richard's Motors,
yeah,
that is your Bonneville Vincent. That's downstairs.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
And was it black or it was red when you bought it?
When I bought it, yeah, it was black.
Yeah.
The Vincents were black.
Okay, the
yeah,
original
but I
black.
immediately painted it red and white. Painted it tan. Well, actually, I painted it some other fake blue and gold or something. It's a terrible looking paint job. And I've got pictures of it someplace, but it was a nice machine, and I had a lot of good runs on that. And then pretty soon, I wanted to buy into the business at Richard's Motors. I'd been there 3 years, and I felt part of it. And I asked my boss, and he says, well, he wasn't interested in selling any of it. I said, okay, then I'm going to quit and open a shop of my own. So I went out in El Cajon, and I looked around. I found a place that would have been ideal, and I could afford it. And pretty soon I realized, hey, I want to go to Europe, and if I open that motorcycle shop, I'll never get to Europe. So I wrote letters to Triumph and BSA and Vincent. Could I work there? And they all wrote back yes. And so I sold my Vincent, I sold my car, I sold my air compressor, anything that I had that was not nailed down, I sold. And I had a whole bunch of money. I bet I had almost $1,500 or $1,600. And I had a pre-war 1938 model Triumph that needed overhaul. So I overhauled that thing, and I made nice, out of a car luggage rack, I made a luggage rack to hold my 2 suitcases. And I went to a sail maker and got him to make me 2 canvas bags. You open them up like an envelope, set the suitcase in, folded the thing down, folded the cover over, and turned it backwards so it wouldn't get any water in it. And then I went to Surplus and bought a roll of 1/4-inch bungee cord material. And I made me about a 40-foot long rope out of that, plaited four ways, rubber rope. And I tied everything on with that. And then if I wanted to take my coat or jacket or gloves off, I'd take them off and flip them under the rubber, and it just held everything great. It worked fine. And I rode that up to Long Beach, and I had a buddy up there that had a Vincent. He let me sleep on the couch for 2 or 3 nights, and I went down to the docks and found a Norwegian ship. Actually, it was a German ship, but Norwegian flag, and it'd been a spoil of war to the Norwegians. And so I said, I want to work my way to Europe. And I said, you know, it's okay, you can mess cook. Well, I mess cooked about one day, and then the engineer found out I'd been in the Navy, and he said, oh no, down in the bilges. So they had me scraping in bearings, replacement bearings for a motor generator, and I was scraping in them bearings, and I told the second engineer, I said, boy, it's a nice lathe you got in there. They had a lathe in the machine shop. He said, well, you can run it if you want to. He said, I've only got brass and iron, but he says, you can run it if you want to. He said, I've got no micrometers, but I got calipers, and I got no thread gauge. I said, okay, that'll be fine. I'll figure something out. So I run down and took a rocker cap off of my Triumph, and that was 1.5 inch, 26 TPI. And I ground a tool till it fit in the threads. And then I put a pencil in the compound on the lathe and run it down a bar of iron until it made 26 to the inch. And then I set that all up, and I cut out all my pieces, and I still got them, and they still work, and they're all 26